that the Vaisesika Sacred Street Party has got planned for you. We're super fortunate. His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu has taken time out of his schedule. Today, if you just looked at his schedule, you get a sense of his biography and background, because his life is all about giving. In the morning, he gave class, Chaitananya class. Then he spent time with the devotees, teaching them how to distribute books, what to think about when we're on the streets. Then he went on the streets with the devotees, spent time showing them. There was times when there was 25 devotees around Prabhu, and he would introduce each one of them to the person that he was distributing a book to, just sharing the mercy. And finally, we have the wonderful opportunity to be here this evening, hearing about Srila Prabhupada, the ambassador of the spiritual world. And Hare Krishna. And so we're very, very fortunate, because we have in our midst a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who, at least from what we can see, is very deeply connected with the heart of Srila Prabhupada because of the way he's given his life to the preaching movement, which Srila Prabhupada also gave his life to. So who better to hear about connecting with Srila Prabhupada, building a relationship with Srila Prabhupada, than His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu. So let's have 3 loud Haribols for Prabhu. Haribol! Haribol! Haribol!
Is he always that encouraging? He's so nice. Thank you. You're such a warm welcome. Yeah, there's no place I'd rather be. This sacred street party is a great idea. And it's grown out of true spontaneous devotional service. This whole idea to make a street party, it's sacred. This is the best of the best. And anybody who's participating in this has the spiritual intelligence, because this is the conclusion of the Bhagavatam. This universe was made as a place for those who are eager to come back to Krishna, to have a jumping off place, point of departure. And those who know what the purpose of life is can participate in that. It's the best service, to find those who are ripe and give them an opportunity to become Krishna conscious. But I'm thrilled that you're doing this. And you have a name all over the world, you know that, right? Did you know that? You didn't know how famous you are? You are. If anybody knows anything about anything, knows the Sacred Street Party. It's one of the best programs in the world. So thank you for doing what you're doing. And I'm going to sing a little bit, because life's about breaking into song whenever you feel like it. We'll start with the Mangalacharya. Namashreshtam manamati shachiputra sarupam shirupam tasyagrajam rupari matari pushtamati radhakundam girivamorarika madhavasham rapto yasya pratitu kripaya shrikuntam natosmi Hey Guru Gyanadadina Bandhu Swadandadata Karunaka Sindhu Vrinavina Sinahikavata Prasida Radhakanatra Hey Dina Bandhu Karunaka Sindhu Guru Prasadam Nailam Kude Vakshaparane Bhavapakarane Pada Padma Tumutishta Krishna Naivo Payanta Pachitam Kalayastalesha Ramayushapi Kridam Ridam Rasvaranta Yom Tarvahisthautam Shivam Vadundam Jaya Chaitya Vakusha Swatatam Vyanati Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhandamrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These Mangalacharya prayers are prayers of gratitude, and The first one points out that this great devotee has given, the reciter is saying, the author of this prayer is saying, has given me access to all the parts of the spiritual world. Namastreshtam manamapi Sachiputram atrasurupam. Sachiputra means the son of Shachi, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupam tasya grajam urupani maturim gushrivatam. He's naming how all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, now I have their association. And now I know about Vrindavan and Govardhan Hill and Jamuna. And so the prayer remembers that it's a devotee who opens the door to the spiritual world for us. And we're showing gratitude. Sorry, my garland is blocking my mic. I'm getting hand signals. Thank you. And the other prayers are mentioning that the devotee comes to us from Vrindavan and then invites us to come in. And despite the fact that I'm fully disqualified, Vaishnava's heart is to give everyone a chance to come to Krishna consciousness. And this is the mood of the highest devotee. In fact, the various levels of devotees are mentioned in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Havi Kavi. Havi Yogendra mentions that there is the highest devotee, who is called the Uttama Bhagavat. But of course, there's different ways of measuring the levels of devotees. But it's described, Bhagavadiva Totamaha, that the devotee who's on the highest level sees Krishna everywhere and sees Krishna within everything. And then the medium devotee, the Madhyama, is a preacher. Ishvare Taradineshu, Balesheshu, Pusatsucha, Prema Maitri Kipopeksha, Yakaroti Samadhyamaha. The Madhyama Adhikari sees Krishna and sees the devotees, sees the innocent, and also sees those who are against Krishna consciousness or they're against God, and acts accordingly towards all four, towards Krishna, develops love, prema, towards the devotees, maitri, friendship, towards the innocent, gives as much mercy as possible, and towards the inimical, dusatsu, the person is upeksha, is neglectful in the sense of not pursuing that person and not trying to give anything. Just gives the person a wide berth and stays clear. That's the injunction of the Shastra. And then the neophyte devotee is described, Archaryami Vahari, Pujamya Sharaye Hite, Natat Bhakteshu Chamneshu, Sabhakta Prakrita Smitaha. The lowest devotee is called a Prakrita Bhakta, one who is materialistic, is observant of the deity only, sees the deity in the temple, but can't understand what a devotee is, and therefore doesn't have respect for devotees. And what's more, the cha bhaktishu cha anyeshu also doesn't know how to do good for others, because such a person doesn't see that souls within the body, only sees Krishna and in the temple. Archaryam evahare. The deity's there, so offers obeisances, but no respect to devotees who establish the deity, and also has no conception of what to do to help other people. And oftentimes, the highest devotee comes down to the second level in order to teach Krishna consciousness to others. Such a person then would be observant of these four categories. And the conclusion of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is that one can understand the qualities of the topmost devotees by how much they can do good for others. In the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, in the story of the churning of the milk ocean, you may know that the first item that came out of the churning was poison. What was the poison called? Huh?
Hala.
Hala. You don't want that. Hala. Hala poison was enveloping the universe. And Shiva, the Vaishnavana Shambhu, who's known in the Bhagavatam to be the best of the Vaishnavas, he said that this is impending doom for the universe, therefore I'll save everyone in the universe by drinking that poison. He quaffed it, he took it in his hand, and he swallowed it, kept it in his throat. That's why it's called Dilakanta. His throat turned blue because of the hala poison. And Shukadeva Goswami, describing this to Parikshit Maharaj, says, Tapasthom tapa etena tapasiti bhavish. He says that the highest personality in the universe takes austerity upon him or herself for the sake of helping other people. If they take some tapasya, because they know that without some intervention in their lives, then they'll just be enveloped by the poison of the material world. And therefore, he says that the highest method, Shukadeva Goswami is saying, pointing towards Shiva, the highest method of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's within everyone's heart, and the purpose, who has purposely made the universe as an opportunity for souls to go back to Godhead, is one who takes trouble to help these people come out of that dangerous situation, perilous. And Prabhupada exemplified this because he took this mood of innovating beyond what anyone had ever done in order to make this opportunity for Krishna consciousness available. It's there in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam itself. For instance, Shukadeva says, Hirata hunanda pulinda pulkasha apira shumba yavana kasaya yenecha papa yadapashaya shaya shudyanti tasmai pravavishya nivalaha. That this is an all-inclusive process. It's not meant for a certain class of people. Typically, in any religious process, there's a way in which when people take it up with the best intentions, and at some point there's closing of the power, and only certain people can administer it. And only certain people are qualified to take it even, according to this system. In fact, a sociologist named and philosopher named Michel has his what are called iron laws of oligarchy. And that is, as we've seen historically, people who take up a good cause and then who are empowered to do that, then use their influence to keep power rather than do the good work that they set out to do. And this is inevitable, he points out. And therefore, in many institutions, religious institutions, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, there's a way in which people become more concerned with their position as being the presenters of the process than actually helping people. But Bhagavatam's mood is very different. As Shukadeva says, Kirata, Hunanda, Pulinda, Pulkasha, these are all names of people who are outside the Varnashram system, have nothing to do with the culture of the Vedas. But he says they're all qualified to take to the process of devotional service, they can become, rather he says, they can become purified by the association of the pure devotees, because the pure devotees completely depend on Vishnu, and then they bring his energy to the world, and all those people can become saved. And that's really the mission in the Bhagavatam. And it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission also, to help everyone in the world. In fact, when he said, every town and village, we should spread this in every town and village, that my name should be heard. Priti Viti Achinati Nagaradigram. That it should be taught all over the world. Even many Vaishnavas at that time in India, who were privy to the Chaitanya Bhagavat and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, thought, well, that must mean all of India, because how could it mean around the world? I mean, how's that even possible? Because it wasn't that people traveled that much off the Indian continent, or there was not even a conception that people from another part of the world would be able to take to Krishna consciousness. And it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur who had revived Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement after hundreds of years that it had been obscured. Because after someone brings the process of Krishna consciousness, then over time, because of the power of time, Krishna tells Uddhava in the 11th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, then the message becomes obscured. It's hard to see what the original message was. So it requires renewal at certain times. Even we hear in the Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Nashta Parantapat, Krishna tells Arjuna, the disciplic succession as we know it has broken apart, and therefore I'm renewing it now. I'm re-speaking the essence of the Vedic teachings. And after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had left the world, the same power struggle happened, and there were deviants in many, people deviated many different ways and started many different branches of so-called Vaishnavism under Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's banner. And there were identifiable deviant sects that were in the world. So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur began his search for the perfect process, there were a group of intellectuals in Calcutta, and he was in the top group of those who were considering how to make a process available to people in the world so that everyone could unite. And groups of intellectuals there had come up with ideas like what was called Brahmoism. It was a hodgepodge of ideas from Bhagavad Gita and Christianity and many things mixed together in a pot and stirred around. Let's make this presentation. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had come across the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then had this revelation that actually this was the perfect process. At that time, it's also mentioned, you might find it interesting, that although he wanted to bring those teachings to light in their entirety, he couldn't find the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in its entirety, only fragments of it. And he searched mightily around the world to try to find, or around India, to try to find a full copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It took him a long time to find. That's one thing, we can't take it for granted. We have certain facilities, now we think, well, I can get a Bhagavad Gita anywhere, or Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, or Bhagavad Gita. That's all because of our very recent acharyas who brought them to the world. I'll bet most of you have a set of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and Chaitanya Charitamritas in your home, and if you don't, see me afterwards. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur then had procured a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and of course he wrote a book to summarize it. And then he set out on his mission to give Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the world. It's one of the reasons that a very famous journalist of the time had in one of the most influential spiritual newspapers in India at that time had called Bhaktivinoda Thakur the seventh Goswami, because the six Goswamis had renewed all the pastime places of Lord Chaitanya, of Krishna, under the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We wouldn't have Vrindavan as it is now if it wasn't for the six Goswamis, because he sent to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa and Sanatana and others to go to Vrindavan and excavate the holy places. What's more, he asked them, Nana Shastra Vicharanayika Nipanosha Dharma Samstapago, to bring to bear all of the Vaishnava literatures and put them, codify them in such a way that everyone could take to the process of devotional service. They did all that. That's why we asked for a donation. We're on saṅkīrtana. So you got to pay back the acharyas for all the hard work they did. You can tell people that. They really appreciate it. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur then, with his book published, sent it out to universities and to famous people at the time. Thoreau, Emerson, and many other thinkers and scholars at the time. He sent copies of his book, and also to, we know for sure, McGill University, and there were others probably. That copy that he sent to McGill University was there for a long time until some devotee purloined it, probably in somebody's house somewhere. Nonetheless, that was his vision, to get it out to the world. He wanted to see that people from every country would come together. He had this vision. They would come together in Sri Mayapur and have kirtan together and chant Jai Sachinandana. And it was a monumental task. He prayed for help, just as Advaita Acharya had prayed for help. My Lord, please come. This degraded age, I can't do this alone. If you personally come, then we can start a movement so everybody in the world can have an opportunity. And that's how the Krishna conscious movement started. It's by the prayers of Advaita Acharya. Right? Say yes. Yes. He prayed there in Shantipur. He took Ganga Jal and he offered Tulsi and Ganga Jal to the Shalgram Shila. And with loud cries, he said, Lord, please come here. Please help, please help, please help. You want to try it? Yeah. 2 people wanted it. Everybody else close your ears. The 2 people said yes, get to participate. You want to try it? Yes. All right. Okay, so when I count down from 3, put your arms in the air as high as you can and just call out Krishna. Just let it all out. I know we're all under pressure, right? Other than a million things you're worried about, at least I know I am. And when you put your arms in the air, just say Krishna as loud as you can. Try to scare the neighbors. 3, 2, 1. Krishna! And Advaita Acharya did that over and over again. And that was what Mahaprabhu said later. We find in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, he said, Nada, he called Advaita Acharya, Nada, you woke me up. I was sleeping on a milk ocean. You woke me up and you made me come here. And so, calling out for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appeared. Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayed, please send me a ray of Vishnu, he said, in my family to help me spread this all over the world. He had an illustrious family, but the moon amongst all stars was Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was a child prodigy. He had memorized the Bhagavad Gita by 7. I know you're saying that's no big deal, we did that too, right? Some of you hold Bhagavad Gita by the time you're 7. Well, if not, you probably know someone. I know people when they're kids. Some people, I've met their family members, and they have a niece or somebody, and say she's 7. Like, say such and such a verse from wherever. They just know it. The whole Bhagavad Gita. But he also knew all the commentaries, and he could fully converse on it. And when he was an adolescent, he was receiving academic awards all from the highest levels all over the world for his research. And his father inculcated in him the vision to bring Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission to the world, which after much tapasya, chanting 1 billion names. It's a lot of rounds. He sat there for 10 years and chanted. In a broken little heart, he had to hold an umbrella over his head as he kept chanting all day long. He took to the mission after his illustrious father had left the world, after the members of the Guru Gana at that time had also left. He took up in earnest this vision of his predecessors, the acharyas before him, to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. But how would that happen? So he started an institution called Godima, and it was highly successful. He especially tried to recruit the best and brightest from universities and other places and sent them out, empowered them to preach, and it was extant all over India. He also had made forays into to Britain at that time, and also to, where's that place that just had a big earthquake? Yeah, Myanmar, Burma. He had a friendship with the king there, and who facilitated him starting a chapter there. So he's in, I should say, outroads to places off the continent, the subcontinent of India. And the one in Britain wasn't so successful. The devotee came home and he was called back because he was being funded by the Godima, and he looked like he wasn't making any progress at all. In fact, he was becoming more enveloped by the Western ways and culture rather than actually inculcating Krishna consciousness to people there. So he came back, and among his disciples, he had spoken many times that he wanted to spread this all over the world, and still there was a feeling, how would that happen? So the founder acharya of our movement, his name Abhay, and then when he was initiated, Abhay Charanaravinda, who we know had met his spiritual master in Ultadanga Junction Road. If you have the chance to go to Calcutta, I recommend it as the best of all pilgrimage places. If you're going to Mayapur, go to Calcutta for a couple of days, because there you can see Prabhupāda's birthplace, which is really nicely developed now. You can see Ultadanga Junction Road, which is the ashram that his spiritual master started in Calcutta. And by the way, his spiritual master had told Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his Gorky Shorthouse Babaji Maharaj had said a couple things to him. He said, don't make any disciples and never go to Calcutta. And later, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, I never made any disciples. These are all representatives of my spiritual master. I'm serving them. And he said, I never really touched Calcutta. I went there only with the mission. So we were insulated from Calcutta altogether. And he had started a mission there in Calcutta when a rich disciple built the Bakazar Temple, and it's still there. And Ultadanga Junction Road is there, fully restored. In fact, the very steps that Prabhupada walked up to meet his spiritual master for the first time are preserved there. They put some clear coat over them so you can see him. So if you'll feel it viscerally when you walk up those stairs, that we're walking up the stairs of history that changed the world. Prabhupada making that ascent up that stairway, and then seeing his spiritual master sitting there, effulgent, holding forth. And when he sat down, before he sat down, he offered obeisances. Before he sat up, his spiritual master said, you should spread this all over the world. You're educated, you know English. And he was taken aback, was Abhay. And he argued, he said, but the British now rule India, sorry guys, and until we get free from their rule, who will listen to us? What will be the audience for us, because we're a subjugated nation? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta impressed upon him that this is so important it can't wait for any political change. And he said, besides, political changes take place all the time. What's up is down later, what's down becomes up, and everything goes sideways ultimately. So the main interest in life, and there's no nothing that can hold back the tide of bhakti, that this is too urgent to delay or to try to make any other arrangement. And by the time he walked out, Abhay was completely convinced, and he said, "I held within my heart the message he had given me, which is to spread this around the world." Of course, it seemed impossible at the time. He was a young man, just started a family, just started a business, and so forth, and he incubated that within his heart for many years. And I had met a great saintly person in whose hands the movement of Lord Chaitanya has been placed and well placed. And that's the power of the disciplic succession. Those who take up the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, doesn't matter who you are, where you are, if you take the message yourself, that is direct contact with Krishna. In fact, Prabhupada writes in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that the order of the Lord is now different from the Lord. And he said, it's that order which, upon being embraced, allows you to see the Lord face to face. And this was Prabhupada's claim, that it's only by my embracing that order given by my spiritual master that I was successful. He said, I have no qualification. And we can see also that when he struggled to take it up, for instance in Jhansi, when he finally did have some separation from his family and obligations and also his business, which incidentally fell apart. There was a robbery, he lost a significant amount of money, and at the times when he got the news for these things, he didn't try so hard to fix it. He took it as Krishna's arrangement. He said, just see, these things are happening. He tried to start a center in Jhansi, and if you read that in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, you'll see that it was a seemingly demeaning chapter in his life, because he had worked very hard to get this place, and then the wife of the governor there wanted it for a different idea, a women's club they wanted to start, nothing spiritual. And gradually he lost his control of that land and had to give it up. Lucky for us. And at an advanced age, which was 69 years old, he finally came to a point in his life when it was do or die. He had spent time in Vrindavan preparing his books, and then when you go to Calcutta, you can go to the docks where Prabhupada got on the Jaladuta. Did you know that? The dock is still there. And when I first saw that, maybe 10 years ago, when we drove by it in a bus and we were on our way somewhere else, we just looked out the window, I had realized that when Prabhupada stepped on the Jaladuta, that boat was on the Ganges. Because the Ganga comes into Calcutta, and that's the thoroughfare on which the boats head out. And from that exact place, there's a route to the west, and a lot of trading takes place from that. Little do they know that the best deal of all times, the best cargo, was what Prabhupada was carrying, was all his books. When he got on the Jaladuta there on the Ganga, his famous voyage across, his struggles in New York City, and he, before coming to America, had himself gone out to distribute books throughout India, all by himself. But think of it, it wasn't that he could just order books by phone or internet. He had to print them himself. But that's not all. He also had to write them. He wrote them, printed them. Each one of those phases of the process is practically insurmountable to do it by yourself. You didn't have help, nor did he have many resources. He didn't have big backers at all. But somehow or other he pushed forward, and he came out with a magazine, and then he started making books, and then he worked on the Bhagavatam tirelessly, and that's what he brought on the Jaladuta, and landed with that and not much else, except when some people say he didn't have any money, but actually, he sold a set of his Bhagavatams to the captain of the ship before he got off. $25. So he had that. That's not much. And the Scindia Steamship Company kept his books for him in their own storage area. And then he had those in wait until he was able to establish himself, which he did in a very simple way, which is just chanting Hare Krishna in the park and then meeting devotees who gradually started to help him and so forth. So when devotees gathered around Prabhupada, he had already seen how Krishna had taken away all the material facility he had, which he intended to use to spread Krishna consciousness. He had come single-handedly. He had seen what his predecessor Charyas had done and said. And so he was in a mood to empower everybody. And those who came to him, who were interested in Krishna consciousness, he would give the reins to take over projects, and in that way empowering people. The movement spread around the world. He started a press, which was the first thing he did, because his spiritual master told him, if you ever get money, print books. So there wasn't much money in ISKCON when it first started. In fact, everyone was very poor. Devotees would go out and collect a little money, usually 25 pence at a time. Sell magazines, and the first Bhakti-guided magazine was not even done through a publisher. It was just done on a mimeograph machine. You probably don't even know what that is, but it's kind of like a copy machine, only much less technologically advanced. And it's stapled together. Yeah. And then they would take it out and sell it. And then one thing led to another. Devotees were able to put together a little bit of money, and the first thing Prabhupada did was buy a house in Boston. And the reason he bought it was so he could move a printing press inside and start printing books. And Narayan had to come there and reinforce the floor so that the floor wouldn't cave in with the weight of the printing press, because they're heavy. So that's sort of the history. And Prabhupada's forward march was all based on this idea of reaching out to the local population, giving them literature, giving them a place to come to chant Hare Krishna and hear about Krishna. And so all of you are doing that. This is the tip of the spear of the movement, is to meet people on the sacred street. You make sacred by showing up there. Otherwise, today when we were out in Watford, we were treated to the beautiful sound of the Harinam. You could hear it up and down the street. The devotees were really pounding out the mantra. I mean, it was fantastic. And way up the street, you could feel the mantra. In fact, we mostly noticed it when they stopped chanting. And then everything became dead. And you could realize that it's a hard slog here in the material world. With no Harinam and no Bhagavad Gita, as it is, or Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it's just a crushing process here in the material world. And we can feel it today that the presence of the devotees out distributing books and doing the chanting and giving out prasadam is a great relief to the world. So Prabhupada's process was very simple, and what you're doing by extending the goodwill you've received, many of you already did this last life, you just came back to help again. You're doing the right thing, absolutely the right thing. This perfectly aligns you with the great acharyas and with Krishna's purpose for the world. And I landed in the Krishna conscious movement because I received a Bhakti-guided magazine from my friend. And from the very beginning, I observed that Prabhupada was fixed on preaching. He said that that was what advanced devotees do. They go out and try to give it to others. He said it's more important than building temples. You put some infrastructure, because he said people, they generally won't come live under a tree with you. But if you have a nice facility, they can come there. So all of the management and development infrastructure, it really follows the preaching, not the other way around. So you're setting this example by showing what the most important aspect of Krishna consciousness is. How did you get that in your minds and hearts anyway, to start this? I mean, it's extraordinary what you're doing. You just decided we're going to follow Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the disciplic succession by taking this stand that we can't bear to see the suffering of the souls in the material world anymore, and we're going to follow in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada and the 6 Goswamis and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We're going to, despite all odds, we're going to go out and give it to other people. Is that what you were thinking? Just say yes. You don't have to be so humble. Yeah, you were thinking that. You were. That's what you were thinking. That's what you're thinking now. So I just want you to know that this is the right thing to do. This is the heart of the Krishna consciousness movement, is to extend yourself to those who don't know what Krishna consciousness is, and to meet people who are innocent and give them an opportunity. Fortunately for us, we've been given the facility that is practically plug and play. Once you meet somebody, you can give them the transcendental literature. They have a place to go where they can cultivate Krishna consciousness. And this is an extraordinary time in history. Who knows how long it will last? Take advantage and strike while the iron's hot. And feel free to put your heart and soul into this, because it's the right thing to do. And feel free to expand it if you wish, because preaching means expansion and giving as many people as possible the opportunity. Feel free to use your God-given intelligence to plan ahead to make the party bigger and better and more efficient. And never stop, because it's a lifetime activity, and those who do this, like you, are given a special place in Krishna's heart. Because, as he says in Bhagavad Gita, straight out, and I read this to somebody today on the street, because he was a Sikh, and he said, I can't take this because I won't be able to respect it enough in my house. So he had already given a donation. He said, I shouldn't take it. So I read him those 2 verses in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, there's no one more dear to me than the person who shares this message with others. And I said, it's not yours, give it to somebody who needs it. And he immediately felt empowered. He was on a motor scooter delivering pizza or something like that. And all of a sudden, he was a member of Lord Chaitanya's movement. He just read him this verse, said, this makes you dear. Do you take this book, not for you, you give it to somebody else. And he's like, I can do that? And we can do that. We're on the front line of this. Just think, the great souls, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, all our immediate acharyas are saying, this is the best thing to do, and you're doing it. And nobody else is flying in here. It's all you. This is, you're right now in this most important time, in this Kali Yuga, you've been given this opportunity. And take advantage of it. Your place in history is cemented in because of participating with the Sacred Street Party. It's no small thing. In fact, it's in the Krishna consciousness movement, amongst all this strum and drum and all the things going on all over the world, this is the most important aspect. This is the light of the world, what you're doing. This courageously going out on the street and presenting to people the Krishna conscious literatures, the holy name, being friendly to them, inviting them in, saying you can do this too, no matter what position of life they're in. And now, at the risk of shooting past the time, which I have no idea when that ends, I'll just take some reflections or questions. Yes, please.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna. Do we have a second mic? No? Okay, I'll repeat, just so people online can hear.
A lot of people that were meeting, especially from the Indian body people, were saying, we've been to your temple, we have all your books.
A lot of people that were meeting say, I've been to your temple, we have all your books.
Yeah, but they're openly admitting in a friendly way that we're not really
but they openly admit that they are not really reading.
Yeah. As in the pressures of life, busy.
Because of the pressures of life.
So what would you say to us that we should say to them to encourage them in that direction, without being too heavy-handed?
How would we encourage them to be more involved?
To read them.
To read. Generally people like to join a group because although all of you are strong sadhakas and you're used to getting up early in the morning, chanting all your rounds, reading Bhagavad Gita every day, hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you're tracking, okay? And you have these proclivities. Other people, it's very difficult because they are ensconced in the material world. There's a strong pull to go along with that. So people need a place where they can come and get association with devotees. Everything happens by sangha. And if you create sanghas for people and invite them to come into your space, be very warm and welcoming for people, be an ambassador of goodwill. And if you create spaces, so as soon as you meet somebody on the street who shows a little interest, whether Indian or otherwise, if you have a place where they can meet up, either on Zoom or in person, where it's fit for them. They walk in, there's some personal attention, and you invite them, please sit down. And that's what Prabhupada did. He invited people to come to his little storefront. He'd sit and talk to them personally. He personally served them prasadam. You know that? You know this stories in Mukunda Maharaj's book about how Prabhupada, the first feast he cooked was in that loft he was staying in. And he had these pots, and they had no serving utensils. They didn't have any money. There was no Bhaktivedanta Manor, big kitchen, or pots or anything. No haveli. And he walked around with the pots, and he gave everybody from the pot. He would serve them everywhere, and he went around saying, "Take, take, take, take." That was his mantra. That's our mantra, right? What's our mantra? Take, 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 take. He just take. Very loving. With his own hand, he served them. And when you do that, take responsibility for people, just please come in. I grew up in a temple with some notable devotees. One of them was Chaitananya Prabhu. He was my bhakti leader. And there were devotees there that were gang members who had joined because Chaitananya was so personal with them. He met these gangsters who will go unnamed now. One of them's still alive. And they became devotees of Prabhupada and were initiated. But he had met them when he was on saṅkīrtana. And he was so personal, he went to their house and he cooked breakfast for them in their own house before they even woke up. They thought, what's going on out there? And they got up and there was this guy they had met earlier in the parking lot who had been so nice to them and given them some books, and he found out their address. He came over there, he cooked them breakfast. And they thought, who is this? He comes over and cooks us breakfast and personally takes care of us. And so when we take a personal interest in people's lives and we give them an opportunity to come into the association of devotees, the change naturally happens because it's better. It's a better life. And yesterday, when we were going door to door with the kids, I had a group of kids with me, and we were at somebody's doors around dinner time, so people were cooking. And I won't speak much more about the details of that, except for one of the kids, we were standing there, we were ringing the doorbell, and he goes, this stinks. Because he could smell garlic coming through the door. And I thought, yes, this kid's got a higher taste because he grew up in a transcendental environment. So he knows the difference. And most people don't know the difference until you invite them into a place that doesn't stink. And they go like, why do I feel better? Because it doesn't stink. The whole material world stinks. Everything about it stinks. And even the parts that seem like they're okay, isn't that okay? That's going to go sideways. And it's going to stink. Everything goes sideways in the material world. The only safety is in the transcendental realm. And you can get there very quickly just by the simple method of reading Bhagavad Gita out loud to a group of people. You want to start your own saṅkīrtana movement? Say yes.
Yes.
All you need is some heavy prayer, like Vaitacharya. And now you're Krishna. You gotta really want it. If you just call out to Krishna, please help, and then you open your space. Let's say you could fit 3 people in your apartment. You cook a little prasadam for 3, make it for 6, in case they bring a friend. And then you invite them in and just like, here, we'll read Bhagavad Gita. And you read out loud and then ching, 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 ching. You chant Hare Krishna, give them some prasadam. And next thing you know, they're feeling the spiritual world. And there's no other alternative for those who taste it to want to go towards it. So we have to invite people in. Okay, I'll take a few more. Yes. Hare Krishna.
What do you think that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam would have wanted from us, not just externally, but in our internal life?
What do you think Prabhupada would want from us for our internal life? Right? Well, Prabhupada comments about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he met Srila Ishvara Puri and Gaya. And after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who apparently was a haughty adolescent who had been fully absorbed in himself mostly as a scholar and defeating everybody else, and after he had gone to Gaya, he met Srila Ishvara Puri. And after being deeply touched by meeting his spiritual master, he had taken initiation, and he came back a changed person. And everyone said, what happened to him? I want it. And he then was fully absorbed in being a devotee. And when he chanted Hare Krishna, he thought something was wrong with him because he would weep. And there were other symptoms that made him, as he thought, mad, as in crazy. So he went back to the spiritual master and he said, did you give me the right mantra? Because when I chant this, I go crazy. And the spiritual master said, very good, very good, very good. And there in the purport, Prabhupada said, the spiritual master isn't interested in donations or any material facility. What he wants to see is that the disciple gets the fruit of Krishna consciousness, and then gets a taste for chanting Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada, the first time I had the fortune of sitting in his presence was in 1973 in San Francisco. I'm a kid from the suburbs. Here's a paramahaṁsa. I went in with a group, got whisked in, sat down, and when the devotees read Prabhupada the saṅkīrtana results for the day, he looked right at us and he said, you must also read my books. I've not written them just for selling. I've written them for you to read, become pure devotees, and go back to Godhead. That's what Prabhupada wanted. He says so in his books. So he wanted us to read his books. And after that time, I felt full permission to read Prabhupada's books as much as possible, and I still do. And it's the mainstay of our movement. That is the sound vibration. That is the books. Prabhupada's books are the primal vibration of ISKCON. And taking full advantage of that vibration by going deeply within them, reading them regularly, reading all of them completely all the way through, as many times as possible in this lifetime, that gives one this internal spiritual strength, and one can understand exactly what Krishna wants, what Prabhupada wanted, hearing from his purports. He said, everything I had to say, I said in my books, so please read them carefully and discuss them. He said in his final purports before he left the world that if there's ever any difference or problem, he said, sit together and read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and you can work it out. So that's what he wanted us to be internally, to be deeply in love with the Bhagavatam. And that's not hard to do because it's so beautiful. The Bhagavatam solves all our problems. Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. There are these 3 main stumbling blocks in the material world. Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. And by reading through the whole Bhagavatam, there's a way in which the Bhagavatam helps us overcome all of the psychological anomalies that hold us back from giving our full heart to Krishna. And that's what Krishna wants, that's what Prabhupada wants, that's what any Vaishnava wants. They want to see everybody happy. And a Vaishnava knows you can't be happy unless you're with Krishna. I mentioned in class this morning, I just read in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam that the emptiness that people feel in the material world because they're not in contact with Krishna is worse than death and hell. The pain of struggling through life and then dying and going to hell is not as great as the emptiness that one feels by not being connected to Krishna. And you can directly connect to Krishna by reading the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, because that's the sounding incarnation of Krishna. So that's what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted us to take advantage of what he painstakingly presented for us. I've thought of creative ways to do that. You want to hear them?
Yes.
Oh. So one of them, I felt, after that instruction by Prabhupada, read my books, I felt a little overwhelmed because there's so much to do, right? And plus, there's a lot of books. And you might look at a whole wall full of Prabhupada's books and think, how am I going to read all those? I've got exams, and I've got work to do, and many other obligations, right?
Yes.
So yes. Yes. So I was listening to this lecture by this motivational speaker called Brian Tracy. He said, any big task you want to do, you break it down into small parts. And I was thinking about that. I think, big task, Prabhupada's books. What should I do? And then I realized there's a finite number of pages there. So I could count all the pages and then parse out reading sessions every day, and I'd know exactly when I'd finish. So I created this little chart with the help of a friend of mine, Sri Vasapanda, helped me count all the pages. And I put down a list of all of Prabhupada's books and how many pages there are in each set of books or each book. And then we made a time frame when you'd be able to finish any one of them if you read a certain number of pages a day. And then we came up with a name for it. You want to hear the name?
Yes.
Yes.
Be a sage, page by page. I'll tell you another revelation. Once when we have these reading sessions today, this year it's going into our, I think, 25th year at Govardhan Hill. We go to Govardhan Hill during Kartik. We just hide out. We have an ashram there. Now lots of people come and we read together. But we read 5 hours a day from Bhagavatam. And one day when we were reading Bhagavatam, I was looking at the canto, because we tried to finish the whole canto. If I'm getting kicked out, don't let me be the last one to know. And I was looking at a page. If you have a book and you look at a page, it's so thin, I don't think you can even measure it with an iPhone. That, you know, the what do you call the width of it's too small to measure. But if you keep turning the pages, somehow or other, after a couple of days, you see that much progress in the book, right? And so be it safe, page by page. And then we turn it into an app. So it's there, a free app on iOS. And what's the other one?
Android.
Yeah. So any of those platforms, you can open it up and then you can pick any book. And then if you say, I would like to read the whole Bhagavatam, would you like to read the whole Bhagavatam?
Yes.
Let's say you want to read it in 5 years. 8 pages a day. That's it. 8 pages a day. That's all I have to read, and in 5 years it'll be done. What if you're a little more ambitious? If you're more ambitious than most people, raise your hand. Everybody raise your hand. Come on, this is Sacred Street Party. So, 41 pages a day. That's it. Takes an average of an hour a day. And if you read 41 pages a day, you'll finish the whole Bhagavatam from beginning to end in less than a year. Actually, a few days before a year is up, you'll finish the whole Bhagavatam. And you're going to be a year older in a year anyway. But if you read the whole Bhagavatam, you'll be a noticeably improved person. Okay, now I'm getting signals. It's over.